Good evening.
Good evening, my darling. How are you? Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yesterday was Thanksgiving, which is always wonderful. How was it for you?
It was delightful. It was. I was with a small gathering of friends that were close by. I only had to prepare one dish, so it was easy for me.
Nice.
And I brought, a Dutch apple pie because, who doesn't love that?
Right?
But Public Supermarket prepared that for me, so that was awesome. Why knock myself out baking? Even though I'm a great pie maker, I'm sorry, but when they're on sale at Publix, just snag it, put it in the bag. You're
Exactly.
gone. You're out of there. Yep. So
Exactly. It's not like you haven't had an extremely hectic schedule up until this point. So it's holiday vacation time for you.
yeah, it was, and I was with a lovely, delightful small group of friends, and we celebrated, and then my dad had eye surgery this past week.
I saw
And
that.
yeah, he had to have a cataract removed, but it was rather complicated by glaucoma. So it took a while. I was concerned because it felt like he was in surgery forever.
Right.
Um, and last night, his eyes had kind of gotten dry and he was just a little past his time for his meds for his eye drops. And so about 7 o'clock, he looked tired and he said, I need to go put my meds in. And it was only 10 minutes away. So, it was a quick trip home. And I got him all eye dropped up and told him to find me a football game because Thanksgiving is not Thanksgiving unless I'm watching some football. I didn't
That's
care
so
if it
true.
was college, if it was NFL. I didn't care what team. Didn't matter to me. It's just not Thanksgiving unless you watch a little football.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So we did that. And Peanut went with us, which was wonderful for her. Here, behold, the overstuffed dog who had some leftover turkey for supper tonight. Just my
Oh,
baby. For
there she
anyone out
is.
there that does not know that this is the center of my universe right here, my baby.
So cute.
She's my sweet baby. She's my so sweet girl. All right, sit in mommy's lap. There we go. And so that was that. And today I laid around like a sluggo. I mean, like a lounge lizard. I just laid around and did nothing that I was supposed to do. I had a list this long of things that I could do today. I didn't even turn my computer on to
Good for
until
you.
about maybe 40 minutes ago. I
Good for
turned it
you.
on and got it up and running. So yeah, but tomorrow I'll get back to work. Tomorrow is the day that I will just hit the ground walking.
You know what? And that's okay. Sometimes you got to take a break. This
Yeah.
was definitely needed. And one more would probably be okay to take, but that's up
Yeah.
to you.
And that's really up to my body because I got up this morning and I was like, "Oh my god, I am so old." Oh, hold on. Let me fix my pink thing. I'm all pink tonight. I'm all
Looks
pink.
good.
Pink. All the
Looks
way.
good.
Even pink earrings that were given to me. More of it, same style as the one of, the mysterious missing earring
Right.
that came back to me. Yeah, from my new friend Lorna Brunel, and my last appearance of the year was at her theater in Middleborough, Massachusetts, which was charming and lovely and absolutely an amazing crew of people. I was so thrilled to meet them all. They couldn't have been nicer and more welcoming to me. And so I feel like I will be back there. I will be back there for other events over the years. It's kind of halfway between um, Cape Cod and Providence. It's like almost halfway between.
Halfway in between.
Yeah. So it was gorgeous and beautiful, and I had a wonderful time, and everything was great until I got to TF Green Airport, and there was a backlog in Chicago, which delayed my flight by 5 hours.
Ooh.
And I was already inside I had already gone through security. I was all snuggled into my area, and I sat there for 5 hours waiting for a plane to show up. And by the time I got back to Florida, I could have eaten a cigarette right directly from the pack.
Wow.
So I was in severe nicotine deprivation and I was a raving bitch from hell. I hid it really well though. I did. But when I tell you that Orlando International Airport, if it were not for the masks, you would never, ever, ever know that we were in a global pandemic. And at the baggage claim, zero social distancing. I mean, these people were standing right on top of each other. Me, I stood way back. I'm like, my luggage will come to me.
Right.
No way. Oh my God. It was scary. Really. It was, and then today we wake up and there's a new variant and they don't know if anything's going to be effective against it yet. And okay, so how many times have I said this isn't over yet?
Right.
Let me reiterate, this is not over yet.
No, it is not. It is not.
Lord. So tonight, and I know I've had him on the show several times, but the reason that I have had Jeff Turner on the show several times is because Jeff Turner is one of the most bright and beautiful souls that I know. And I really thought that he would be a perfect choice for us to do this episode of A World Awakening about gratitude, which seems perfectly timely. And if you remember a year ago, Tony, that was, I believe the show was in gratitude.
It was. Yep.
And so, we talked about that because I truly believe that the only way that you can ever make your life better is to be grateful for what you already have.
Yep.
True. You can't curse your circumstances today and expect you're going to have better circumstances tomorrow.
Exactly. That's a great point. Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that, and let's bring Jeff in and greet him. And for those who don't know him yet, everyone, you are in for a treat. And there he is. There's my sweet, sweet Jeff.
Hey.
How are you, darling?
I am wonderful. How are you?
You are wonderful. I second that motion. You absolutely are.
Ah, shucks.
Good. Did you have a nice holiday?
I did. I had a fantastic holiday. I did. Busy day, 2 different Thanksgivings at 2 different families. So we had to gorge ourselves twice within a matter of within a space of 2.5 hours. But
yeah,
there are worse things in the world than having to eat 2 delicious meals back to back. Right.
Yes.
So we had a fantastic day, today, a little more relaxed today, but yeah. Wonderful. How about you?
Oh, good. I did nothing. I was just like oh my God. I was like snail-like today.
Yeah.
Everything I did in slow motion. Drank a lot of coffee. That didn't keep me awake. I napped twice. Out down I go with my peanut on the sofa.
Yeah.
I really needed it. I was just exhausted. I'm still exhausted. It's going to take a while for me to recuperate from my travels. And I know you understand because you do events similar to what I do. And you just get to a point where it's like, oh my God, I can't take, one more trip. Oh my God, this is not equidistant from my head. I have to fix. Okay. This is, and everything's backwards. Everything is backwards in these. Oh my God, here we'll do this and then that. And okay. All right. My hoodie. I'm having a little issue with my hoodie. You're freezing up, honey. Are you plugged in? Are you all plugged into your internet?
It's working good on my end.
Yeah, it looks like he froze.
Yeah.
Let's see if he comes back.
Yeah, I see you good. Can you hear me at all? Or?
We can
We
sort of kind of hear you. You're
Okay.
all broken up like you're coming in from Pluto.
Yeah, and your video is frozen at the moment.
Okay.
Do you want to jump out and come back in on the
I
link
come back
again,
in.
hon?
Yeah, let me do that. Let me do that.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Sometimes that helps. You
It-
know,
it
I'm
very-
not even over energized, Tony. I don't think we can even blame me tonight. Usually I'm the one that, gets overexcited and then everything just explodes, but he'll come back.
There comes a point for everybody where after you go and go and go, you have to stop, and that energy level tapers off. And
Yeah.
I think between going through your Halloween season and oh my gosh, event after event after event, that takes its toll. And you've been all over the country. You've been on plane after plane after plane, event after event after event. So yeah, I can understand why your body's just saying, "I'm done. Let's rest. Let's take it easy for a while."
Yeah.
I can
I'm
understand.
done. Let's rest.
Yep.
Yeah. But the Ocean State Paracon, which actually took place in the Bay State, Massachusetts, but not far over the border. It's sponsored by Rise Up Paranormal, which, as you well know, is Ken DaCosta.
Ken. Yep.
And Julie DeMay and their crew. Wonderful, wonderful investigators and salt of the earth people. I couldn't ask for better friends. And
Right.
This is their event, and I've done it year after year after year. And last year, of course, everything was canceled. So we normally do it in July, but this year it got bumped to November so that it would be safer and more people would be vaccinated and ready, ready to rock and roll. He's back.
Am I back? Am I moving or am I frozen?
You are.
Okay.
Looks good.
No,
Okay.
You're moving. You're good.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. So tonight I wanted to talk about gratitude. And you seemed the perfect choice for me because both of us have been through some difficult things in life. And sometimes you just have to step back and really look at it and give thanks for coming out on the other side of experiences and obstacles and have the road ahead have some light shed on it by having faith that it's all going to be okay. I think it was John Lennon that said, "It'll all be well in the end. If it isn't well yet, then it's not the end."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was him. And so I want to know first and foremost what you are grateful for.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be alive. I know that sounds cliche. I know that sounds just like something you say when someone asks you that question, but I am genuinely grateful to be conscious, to be alive, to be able to take in my cup of coffee right now, the table I'm sitting in front of. Every morning, I'm a big fan of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and I love the simple line in there of just, every day, just meditate on how wonderful a thing it is just to be alive. I try to take at least 10 minutes every morning before I get out of bed and just say to myself, it's so good to be alive. It's so good to be alive. Like I'm just so thankful for life. I mean, after the year we just came through, we've seen the fragility of life. We've seen how easily it can be taken away and snuffed out. And to still be here is a miracle. Had we been 3-4 centuries in the past, there's a good chance I might not be. I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful to be alive. And beyond that, I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for the love that I know. I mean, just the simple things like yesterday morning, waking up. You and I talked about it earlier, turning on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade and eating a cinnamon roll, which is something I can't normally do because I can't eat carbohydrates and gluten most of the time. But on Thanksgiving, I will risk getting sick for it. I don't care. So a cup of coffee, a cinnamon roll, and just, I mean, that's the stuff of life. It's the stuff that we sometimes can just kind of, it seems like a banality to us. It seems like a small thing, but at the end of everyone's life, it seems those are the moments they wish they'd had more of, you know? And I try to consciously stop in those moments and take a screen grab of it and just be there and be grateful for it. And so today, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for the now that I exist in. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to be here with you. Grateful to be here with the audience. That's a lot of things I'm grateful for. I'm sorry for rattling on, but yeah, that's just a few.
Yeah, it's I find over the years that what I'm grateful for is becomes more simple and yet complex, which sounds like an oxymoron. It's not counterintuitive. The simple things in life are what I am grateful for.
Yeah.
For the breath that I draw into my body. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this wonder to behold, this right here, my precious peanut butter cup, who has gotten me through thick and thin and makes me laugh and makes me feel joy, and does the silliest things so that when I'm a little overwhelmed, all I have to do is refocus on her, and that's it. It's like, you know, that wicked spell is broken, and I'm suddenly just conscious of the miracle and the magic of my precious little puppy. Yes, I know, you are so sweet. She saved me. She did. She really did. I saved her, and then she saved me right back. It was a mutual rescue operation that the universe got right smack in the middle of, because when I lost my Gracie Pearl in 2017, I know it. I said, that's it. I'm never, ever, ever, ever. That's my nose, honey, and I kind of need it. It finishes the face to look. You know, I thought, well, you know, that's it. I'm just never going to have another dog. I'm never, ever going to be in this much pain again over the loss of an animal. I can't handle this anymore. I've rescued so many animals in my life, and I can't take it when I lose them. I just really want to go with them. And it's a horrible feeling because, you know, I have a family, and I can't just leave because my dog died, knowing that my dog will be waiting for me somewhere on the other side. And I just know that. I do. I've, you know, seen animal spirits, and I know that they have a soul, and I see it in their eyes. And Ken, oh, hi, honey. Ken Allen, he said, I'll be watching tonight. Well, there's the proof. I'm so grateful to have my mother and my father. Dad turned 86 and mom turned 82 in August. And my mother is such a fighter. She really is. She's been through so much in her life. And to still have her, in spite of everything that she's ever been through, is amazing. And I'm going to be with her in about a week and a half. I'm going up to Georgia to spend the holidays with her. And then Dad will join us over Christmas for at least 3 or 4 days. He generally comes and stays, and it's wonderful to have my whole family together. Or mostly, Nancy stays down here because she's got her kids and grandkids in Florida. So we just see her online. But still, you know, we all get together. You're going to snap your neck doing that. You are. You're going to just snap your neck. Okay. And my dad, his surgery went very well. And so I'm grateful for that because it was not easy. It was complicated by, you know, other factors. And so I'm taking good care of him, as he always takes good care of me. I'm grateful for our beautiful home and this beautiful place that I live. And I'm grateful for my friends. I have the world's best friends. I count you among them. It's what's amazing to me that, and I'm sure you've heard this, it's often said that if you can count your friends on one hand, you've lived a successful life. And friends is kind of defined by who could you call in the middle of the night when you're in desperate trouble, your car is broken down, or you got arrested, or, who could you call to bail you out, literally or figuratively, And I have hundreds that I could call, some going back to my, 12 years old. Two of my closest friends that I spent time with not long ago when I was up in Rhode Island for the live stream over Halloween at the farmhouse, made a carve out of a night before we actually began shooting, and went and spent a whole evening with two men that qualify as my brothers, Tim and Ray. They are, I've known them since I was 12 years old. They were the first two people that I met at Burrowville Junior High School when we moved to the farm. And I love them as they are my family. I can't even say I love them like family. They are my family. And they know my whole family extremely well. I'm grateful for spirit. I'm grateful that April can visit any of us at will, and often does, make her presence known to us when we love and miss her so desperately, and when we miss her the most, and when we invoke her name, she comes to us. She makes an appearance, as it were, and I'm so grateful for that, because, and particularly on Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, which were her three favorite holidays, which we always celebrated together. And she was always such an active part of pilfering the food before it went out on the table, and not really pitching in to do any of the work, just kind of being there to, clean a plate, and then lay around and watch the dog show after the Macy's parade. And yell at us in the kitchen as we're slaving over pots of hot steaming vegetables. Oh, the Schipperkes are up. The Great Pyrenees are up. I'm like, April, I'm going to just have to watch the rerun because I'm in here cooking for you. She would get on my last raw nerve, and I would give absolutely anything to have her back, for her to get on my nerves some more. But I am grateful that I know that spirit exists and that I have that level of communication with her, because it really does comfort me. And what I am most grateful for in this life is the Galactic family. Every single morning I get up and pour myself a fresh cup of coffee and take my baby outside on the terrace, and I lift my arms to the heavens and I say, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And that's how I start every single day, because we're in a boatload of trouble down here on Earth, just a boatload of trouble. And I feel like, even though they're not overtly intervening on our behalf, they are helping us in myriad ways that will come to light over time, that will surface as more and more people open themselves up to the universe. So that's what I'm grateful for. Now, the word gratitude, the etymology of the word gratitude is very interesting. and it goes back many centuries, and it's a basic tenet of most religions. It's factored in to, as you well know, being a student of religion, factored into the teachings that circumnavigate the concept of the golden rule, to do unto others as though you are the others, do unto others, and share what you have in this world with a grateful heart for what you have, but then share it. So in all that you've studied and all that you've learned and all that you know, what is your interpretation of that word theologically? How it fits into the to the lexicon, to the vernacular, how we use it, how we misuse it. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have different interpretations of what that means.
Yeah.
Now, I think of it in broader terms. I don't think of it just specifically, what am I grateful for, but gratitude in general as a concept, as a philosophy of life, as a way of life.
There's a lot to be said there. What I'll say is this. I think we have to know the difference between a true, healthy, I would say divine gratitude, and what could be called a sort of toxic gratitude or toxic gratefulness, which is a false form of it. And I think that there are a lot of people. Well, here I'll say this. I'll preface what I will say with this. We live in a more therapeutically open society today. So more people are conscious of the fact that most people out there have some sort of trauma, right? Most people out there have some sort of trauma. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, somebody would have just said, suck it up. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps, move on, but so that being said, a word like gratefulness, I've found, is a word I use carefully, because I know a great deal of people in my audience will see it as being potentially problematic, because they could see it as being like a gaslighting tactic, right? That somebody could use, where somebody, I don't know, if you're in an abusive relationship or something like that, somebody who was in a more abusive relationship, let's say, could say, well, be grateful that you're not in my situation. Be grateful that you don't have it as bad as I had it. Be grateful that whatever. And that does happen. And that's true. So I want to acknowledge that, because I think we can go overboard one way or the other. So yes, there is a form of gratitude, I think, that could be, there's a naive gratitude. I suppose that's what I'll say. There's a kind of naive gratitude, and it's the kind of gratitude I would like to get back to, but you kind of grow out of, and it's almost impossible to get back to the way you once had it. It has to be a kind of Ricorian second naivete to return to that. I'll explain that, I suppose. But okay, so here's what I'm trying to say without rambling. There is a kind of gratitude that I think is just, you're in a situation that isn't the best kind of situation, and you feel a pressure, whether religiously, ideologically, or for some other reason, to be grateful for a situation that might not be a good situation, right? And then we go through seasons where we awaken to the fact that the situation we're in is not only not ideal, but maybe straight up toxic, right? And so then we go through a season where we kind of rage against the things we once said thank you for. And we kind of purge those toxins out of the system through that rage. And I think that's how the experience of gratitude gets purified. And I think it's something that everyone has to go through, right? And we all go through it in different ways. But Nietzsche, in Thus Spake Zarathustra, He talks about the three metamorphoses of the human spirit. It's one of my favorite illustrations for the spiritual life. He says that we all began as camels. And the camel, there's a lot of different ways people have interpreted this, but to me, it's just this sort of dreary but unconscious dromedarian existence where we bear the burdens that others load on us, but we think we choose them. We think we've chosen them for ourselves. We're not aware that we're bearing other people's burdens. We think, I'm a self-made person. I chose this, right? So that's the first stage of human development, or the metamorphosis of the spirit. But the camel then kind of wakes up and realizes, wait a minute, I haven't been making these choices for myself. These have been loaded on me by another power. And Nietzsche says that's when we experience the dragon called thou shalt. And written on every one of its scales is another thou shalt or thou shalt not. And at that point, the camel metamorphosizes into the lion. And there the lion discovers its sacred no, and it roars it in the face of the dragon of thou shalt. So that's that place where we kind of overcome the naive gratefulness of youth, where you just don't know any better, you know what I mean? But to accept the situation for what it is and be like, oh, this is great, everything's wonderful. And then one day you kind of wake up and you're like, oh, wait a minute, no, this is crap, and that's BS, and oh, wow, I shouldn't have been tolerating this or whatever. And so then that's kind of, it's not really a rebellious phase. It's that would be to cheapen the experience, but it's more just, it's like a sacred rage almost, where you,
but a form of enlightenment.
Exactly. It's a stage of awakening, and you have to pass. I think you have to. I mean, there might be a more advanced form of awakening where someone can just boom,
turn it on like a light switch. I don't think so.
I think
it's a process.
I certainly do too. It wasn't my experience, and it hasn't been the experience of anyone I've known, but who knows? But but it's a necessary thing we have to go through. And so I think that's where we kind of purge the toxins out of our system, and we get it out. And then Nietzsche says that the third stage, the final stage, and now you might repeat this process several times within your lifetime, but the final stage in that particular it's the child. So the camel becomes the lion, and the lion becomes the child. So the final stage of development is to become a child again. Elsewhere, Nietzsche said the definition of maturity is to recapture the spirit of a child at play, right? So it's like, and I think that's maybe even what Jesus meant by being born again. It's not having this where you pray the sinner's prayer and you have this conversion experience, as much as it is willingly returning to the naivety of youth after no longer being naive, So the final stage of maturity is to become a child again, where now you look around and you can even look back at some of the things that occurred when you were in the camel stage and now feel a profound gratefulness for some of the things that happened, because you've purged the toxins out of your system in that sacred no experience. And Nietzsche says this is where we discover the sacred yes. And this is where we can learn. And elsewhere, Nietzsche even said, I desire in life to only be a yes sayer. I want to only, be one who says yes to life. And that was his goal. That was his ambition. And that's the point where we have the toxicity is out of our system, and we can look back at where we've come from, regardless of how crappy and shitty it was at times. We don't say thank you for the shittiness, right? We don't say thank you for the abuse necessarily. There are some things that are inexcusable and that will never be excusable. But the person who's come to that place of awakening, who's actually taking control of their destiny and their life, is a person who can mine through all of that garbage and find what gold there is. And it might be a fleck. It might be a fleck from a fleck, but they will find it. And that's key to becoming like, we always talk about manifesting your greatest life and manifesting your own destiny and taking control of your life and things like that. But without gratefulness, I don't think such a thing is possible, because I think gratefulness is how you really take the reins and take control back in a way. And I know sometimes people don't even like the language of taking control of your life. They more like the language of letting go. But I think there's something to be said for being in control of your own life, you know what I mean? And not being pushed around by the powers that be. But I think without gratefulness, without recapturing a pure gratefulness, I don't think such a thing is possible, because you go through life feeling and I want to choose my words carefully, but you can go through life feeling perpetually a victim, and
Yes.
and that's legitimate. I don't want to belittle that at all. Not at all. And I don't want to make light of anyone's victimhood, but all victims wish they weren't victims at some point deep inside. Their true self doesn't long to stay in that state, but we can
No.
learn these behaviors and get stuck there. And sometimes that's why people get stuck in the lion stage, where all they ever do is say no. All they ever do is roar that no. All they ever do is live in protest of a thing, and legitimate stage of awakening, but it's meant to be moved beyond, right? And gratefulness, I think, is that next step. It's part of that child metamorphosis but I love the illustration because it's not a fully grown man or woman, it's a child. So it's returning to a kind of naivety, but you're no longer naive. You've been through these stages. You've experienced the trauma. You've fought the dragon, and now you're a child again. But you're not a child like you used to be a child. You're like a child. You've chosen to be a child. You know what I mean? You choose to see the world as full of wonder. You choose to say thank you when you know very well there was a lot about that situation that there's nothing to be thankful for. But I choose, because of where I've come from, to find something to be thankful for in it. And I'm going to tell you, that's transformed my life because, and just cut me off if I'm talking too much, Andrea.
No, please go right ahead. Okay.
I mean, because I grew up in a very, I'm always careful to say this. It wasn't my parents. It's not my parents I'm talking about when I say I grew up in a very strict and oppressive religious environment and system. It was not them. It was the system itself. My parents were the best examples of that kind of religion anyone could ever ask for. They were, and they still are. But the system got its claws into me. And I, in my passion and my youthfulness, let myself be taken over and possessed by this system, and I nearly shipwrecked my life in my devotion to this system and the God of this system. And I know that I hurt a lot of people along the way. I did not mean it. My heart was always to love and to help people. And even when I have a few of my old sermons on cassette still, I will never bring them out of the boxes they're in, but I hold on to them just to remind me of where I've come from. But even the old sermons of hellfire and brimstone I used to preach, I tell people, I could preach a hellfire and brimstone sermon back in the day that could make sinners in the hands of an angry God look like a Mother's Day message from the love child of Oprah Winfrey and Joel Osteen. I mean, I could preach hell hot and terrifying and get the altars filled and people. Another time, a different time of life. But I know I hurt people with that. I know I did. And I know I hurt people under my own roof with the way that I was. But I had a profound experience one day. I was walking down the road and I was weeping, thinking about who I used to be, thinking about where I used to be, how I used to interact with people, what sort of trauma I must have put other people through. I mean, I have to live with that as a reality. I don't like it, but it's reality. And I was just crying. I was praying and like, God, what? I just can't. I'm so broken over who I used to be. And I heard this voice. It often just kind of comes from within, but is loud enough it may as well have come from without, that just said, thank you for loving humanity well in all that you've ever done. And it instantly just broke through the clouds. And I knew what was being said was that it was known by whoever's knowing matters that what I did, even when what I did was awful, was done with purity of heart. And in that moment, I felt truly seen and understood, and it just healed me. And it not only healed me, it gave me the tools to look at other people whom I felt victimized by, some more directly and intentionally, others accidentally, because they were caught up in the system as well. And regardless of how good their hearts were, the goodness that they directed toward me and whomever they were directing it toward had to first pass through the system they were a slave to. And so by the time it reached you, it looked like the system, right? So, but having that experience allowed me to see past all that and to see who these people were. And it allowed me to say, thank you, even for all the crap that I went through, and even all the crap that I was drugged through and that I unfortunately drugged my family through because I was being drugged myself. That thank you, it means something different when you've been through hell
Yes.
than it does when you haven't. It means something different when you're a camel than it does when you're a child, right? When you're the child again. Because when you're the camel, that's all you can say. That's all you know how to say. It's just, oh, thank you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's a naive, it's all you know.
Yeah.
But then when you pass through that hell and you find that guttural, sacred no and that holy protest against these things that have harmed you, and you get that, but then you get that toxicity out of your system, and then you find yourself reborn one day as this child, and you're like, what the hell even happened to me? Who am I? But in no words can explain it. It's almost impossible to explain the transformation process to someone else. It's just like, well, I can say for me, it was just like one day I just realized I didn't have the no in my system anymore. It was like it was gone. And I still say no to things, don't get me wrong, metaphorically speaking. But that poison, that venom, it was gone. And I looked at my past and I saw it all as redeemed. It was all glowing. It was all beautiful somehow. You know what I mean? And I could look at it and I could say, thank you for that. And when I could say those words honestly and truthfully as a child, not naive anymore, there was something so powerful about it and so healing. And it also cut those ties to that system, because even when I lived in protest of that system, I was still attached to it, You know what I mean? I was still attached to it in some way. I existed within it. But that gratitude, it liberated me from it. You know what I mean? And it put the control back in my hands, so to speak. And it was the most liberating experience of my life to discover that sacred, non-naive, but chosen gratefulness. Mary Louise von Franz, the intellectual heiress of Jung, said, it's one thing to be a naive idealist. It's another thing to be a critical realist. It's another thing entirely to have no illusions and still hold the inner flame. You know what I mean? And that's that process of being the child again, and being able to look at all the hell that you've endured and yet somehow still find that sacred yes and that thank you, that gratefulness. I don't know. I feel like I just preached a mini sermon, Andreas. I'm sorry.
No, that was beautiful. That's why I knew you had to be the one to do this with me tonight, because you find a way to put things, to express yourself in a way that I believe touches my heart, expands my own consciousness, but I know reaches and teaches others. And I think that what's interesting about what you said, and then I'm going to take this back again into a little bit of a slightly different philosophical bend. I think that the irony of maturity is that it frees us to look at the world with the wonder of a child.
Yeah.
We finally get to a point where we have absorbed so much stimuli that as we process all of it, we start to whittle it away and get down to, the central core of what is meaningful. That's why I was saying it's simplistic in a complicated way, because you've got to go through, you live long enough, you're the walking wounded. You live long enough, you've experienced enough to look at it in hindsight, being 2020, and re-examining the minutia of what brought you to the point that you are.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I find that I am grateful for is all the hell I've ever been through.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was that conglomeration of experience, whether it was growing up at the farm, being fearful, not knowing what I was experiencing, not knowing what I was witnessing, not, the fear that I had around what was happening with my family, particularly with my mother and my sister Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at all of that, going through all of that, going to school every morning, exhausted, just exhausted as a child who moved to that house with boundless energy that was just drained from me as a youngster. And I think that anybody that says that they have no regrets is probably living in bad faith.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone who could look back on the entirety of their existence and say, oh, I hurt that person. I didn't do it deliberately, but I hurt that person and I could have done that better. And I wish that I could have changed that experience. That served no one well. Everybody came out of that particular incident wounded, harmed. I don't believe it when somebody says, oh, I have no regrets at all. Nothing. I would change nothing. I would do everything exactly the same way. Then I don't think that person is particularly self-reflective or owning whatever they did in life, because we all do something that we could have done better, that we could have, approached differently than we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't have necessarily changed the trajectory of our lives. It would have just been less painful for all parties concerned.
Yeah.
However, I do look back on my 63 years and say, I am grateful for all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, because all of it made me who I am today.
Yeah.
All of it shaped me in some fundamental way, or early in life put the bricks in my foundation upon which I built my meager castle.
Mm-hmm.
And to wish that away, or wish that had all been somehow significantly different, is, I think, to deny the reality of who I became through that process.
Yeah.
And it is a very complicated process. We make 1,000 decisions a day. There are 1,000 different ways to engage with someone else, to, decisions that we could have thought through more thoroughly, taken a different path, how we dealt with the obstacles that came our way. But, my thesis in college was on feminism and existentialism. And I studied the great French philosophers, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, who his book Metamorphosis was a primary factor in developing that part of my personal philosophy. Rene Descartes, not really an existentialist, but still a prominent French philosopher who spoke to me, and whose philosophy I was able to integrate into my research. And Simone de Beauvoir. And it was, coming to, Sartre's being in nothingness, defining what our being is. And if it is, if our existence is literally only in our mind, if it is a factor in all of other existence all around the world with every living being, What does it mean? Does it mean anything at all? I mean, there are 1,000 different ways. Really one of the most complicated books that I ever read and had to digest in order to discern the rudimentary philosophy behind it, being that you only live in the moment, that the past is dead and gone, and that the future is nothing but a projection, and all that we have is this singular instant, this moment that we are alive within. And I think that even though I do not espouse that as a life philosophy, I've integrated it into my general philosophy of life, because I do think that we spend too much time reflecting on the past and projecting into the future rather than living in the moment. And I think that one of the things that COVID, I'm not sick. One of the things that COVID has given us is just worldwide, humanity, even though I consider it far more a curse than a blessing. I think that if you have to get out, a cosmic colander and strain out what it has taught us, it has taught many of us as we've awakened during this paradigm shift, which is ongoing, that we can and do suddenly find ourselves living in the moment, feeling the grass beneath our feet while we're home, sequestered from everybody else around us to preserve our own lives, to protect ourselves and our families, and to take that moment where we just look up into the sky and we feel like a speck of sand on a vast beach, where we put ourselves in our place and realize how important that beach is in its vastness and the collection of billions and trillions of grains of sand that exist for the sake of existence, but where that fits into the grand cosmic universal scheme of things. And is it less significant? Is it equally significant? Is it more significant because we consider ourselves a higher life form, which I think is highly debatable. Advanced life form? No. No. In many ways, I think humanity is a failed experiment. That aside, I think that from that, one can extricate oneself from self and be grateful for the whole. That you can actually undergo a cosmic awakening, a spiritual ascension that is literally in the moment, that feeling of the incredible lightness of being, just being. And so I thought it was, so perfect that you began your commentary on this about just being happy to be alive. I think that many more people have had to pause and reflect on their own mortality at this moment in our evolutionary process. Just pause and reflect for a moment on the fact that thus far we have survived what has been thrown at us. And it doesn't matter the source. It does not matter the source of it. It's here. It's present. It is now. It is invisible. It is deadly. It is sneaky and insidious. It has the ability to hide in one host and infect 1,000 more. It is something that we have not encountered in our lifetimes. There are a handful of people on this planet that were alive during the last pandemic that was an entirely different kind of an illness, with an entirely different set and subset of symptoms. And eventually it ran its course. It was assimilated into the population that it didn't kill, including my own grandmother, who was the lone survivor in her extended family, lost, except for her father, lost her mother and all of her siblings to it.
Wow.
And she was 3 years old. And her father came home and picked her up from the center of all the bodies laying all over the house of his entire family and took her to the orphanage and left her there until she was 14 so that he could grieve the loss of everything that he had ever known and loved and provide her with a mother. So she was almost grown by the time she was plucked out of that. And yet I spoke with my meme about those years of her life. And she said to me, I was just so grateful to have a roof over my head and food on the table. So grateful to just be alive. So grateful to have survived it when no one else did.
Yeah.
And so I think we are grateful in degrees. We are grateful based on not only our own unique individual perspective, but also in the grand scheme of things. I am grateful that we have gotten through a particularly perilous predicament in our society. Not through it, but at least enough on the other side that we can examine it and, see what damage was done and start, pull out the tools in our repair kit and get to work. We've been through a lot, Jeff. You and I have talked privately many times about what we've been through societally, what we have been through globally, geopolitically, exopolitically, in terms of coming to grips with, a government that routinely lies to us about what exists out there because they're terrified that, they say they're terrified that it will fracture belief systems and undo the glue that holds society together. But really what they're terrified of is losing their own perceived power structure that would become irrelevant if they were to acknowledge all that's going on. So there's that. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Tony Rathman. I would not have this show without him. I'm grateful to Bill Forte and KGRA. I would not have the reach that I have without him and the network. There's so much to be grateful for that if we delve down into the minutia, we would spend literally all of our thought time in gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we instead instill that feeling of supreme gratitude into our subconscious mind, if we live in gratitude and still are able to live, not constantly in prayer, not constantly, thanking the divine wonder of creation, not, if projecting out, if we live with gratitude in our hearts and let it infiltrate who we are at our core, at our essential being, then we don't need to express it outwardly all the time.
Right.
We can just live in a state of gratitude. Would you agree, or do you think that's too simplified?
No, I think I agree 100%. I think, and I don't think that's simplistic at all. I think it's a very profound and deep thought. And it's one of those things you can say, and if you just hear it, it can sound simplistic, but depth often lies on the surface, and it's way deeper than it seems. And I think I think that that's even the way I perceive God and the divine. However one perceives it. However one perceives it, I'm not here to tell you how to do that. I have a particular language I use because I just happen to be versed in that language. But when I use it, I mean a lot more than what the words often suggest. But I think the whole notion of God is meant to be something that dissolves. It's like, and then you just simply live in a state of being in it. And every now and then it kind of comes back together and you see it as a something, but then it dissolves out again. And most of your life, you just live in the context of this wonder and awe that we call God. And again, every now and then it comes back together. You see it, you experience it as God, but then it goes back out. That's the festival where they celebrate the elephant-headed god Ganesh in Hinduism. They build the idols and the statues of Ganesh. I don't want to use the word idols because that's a loaded term, but they build the statues of Ganesh, and they I don't know how long the festival goes. I forget now, but it's a big deal. They make a big deal. Everything's about this particular deity. And then at the end of the festival, they drop them in the ocean and they're meant to dissolve. And that's symbolic of exactly that idea, that now and again, it's healthy to have the direct encounter and experience with what we call the divine or whatever. But then most of life is meant to live with it being dissolved in the ocean of the unconscious or whatever, and us just sort of living ensconced in that reality without having to keep our minds on it constantly. We're just in it, and it's a state of being. And interestingly enough, I may have said this on here before in another discussion. I'm trying to remember. I say things a lot, but interestingly,
that's okay. You're allowed to repeat yourself. I often do. Okay. A lot of things in life are significant enough to bear repeating.
Fair enough. Yeah. But oftentimes there's a problem of pollution when they put these statues in the ocean because of the insoluble material many of them are made of. And so they wash back up on the shore and there's a pollution issue. And I'm not criticizing anyone's culture. It's just an issue. And I think that's the issue that most religions have. Our gods are made of insoluble material. They don't dissolve well. They demand to be seen constantly. They demand constant thanksgiving, constant attention, constant worship and praise. And so we never come into that experience of just having it be dissolved and us just kind of living in it. They're always washing back up on shore, snapping us out of that more cosmic consciousness and demanding we, worship an object, an idol, if you will. And that's because of the material we make our gods out of. We make them out of material that looks a whole lot like us. We want to be seen. We want constant recognition. That's the shadow side of humanity. And so our gods look a lot like us. But I agree with you 100%. I think that's not only how gratefulness works, but I think that's how the whole thing is supposed to work. We're not supposed to live with our minds obsessively on a concept. I think we live with our minds obsessively on a concept for a moment. What is relatively speaking a moment.
Yes.
And then we get it, and then it dissolves. And it's not the naivety of not knowing the thing. There's depth behind what seems simple in our person and in our speech. But the truth is, it's something like, for me, I've spent many, many hours in prayer, beginning at the age of 15. I started praying 8 to 12 hours a day, even when I was in high school.
Looks like he jumped off.
It does. I know. And this is something that just, if you would, just text him and tell him to, come back in through the link. It was perfect. Okay. Okay.
I don't know. It just went black, but
I know.
We're back. Okay.
I don't know. It was something about what you were talking about, I think. Sometimes the energy or the subject matter, it just triggers something in, energetically in the cosmos. And, yes, Deb, I know. I told you so, didn't I? I told you. Oh, my God. He was so great. I very often will say something or, speak about something where all of a sudden it's almost like there's too much energy,
Mm.
or it's almost a knee-jerk reaction from the cosmos, and it'll break a link, and then you come back and it's perfect, like you were never gone.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time. And for me, what you were saying is that you were praying sometimes 12 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that my first message, the instant message that I got, was an acknowledgement of that devotion, an acknowledgement of that devotion. And I know that you think, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but based on what you've said to me, it's not that the devotion was misguided, but that it was, well, I'll let you carry forth from here.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No. And I don't think it was. I mean, I'm finite in my understanding, so maybe it was. But I mean, I loved the thing I was going after. I thought it was real. I thought it was true in the version I was going after it, and I gave myself to it. And now I'm at a point where I can see the purity of that. And again, it's something I can bow to and say thank you to it for whatever it was. But I spent so much time in that mindset. Like, again, 8 to 12 hours a day. That was when I was younger. When I got married, I couldn't really spend that kind of time. I'm in college, I'm working, and, I always tried to do at least 2 hours and 40 minutes a day because I was trying to tithe my day. I don't know where I got that from. I just thought it would be a good idea. And so I tried to do at least that. And I spent so much time in that mindset, so much time poring over scripture, not even really to get anything from it. I was trying to get something from it, but I was so obsessed with, like, hey, see what I'm doing down here? I'm reading your book. Are you impressed? I mean, I spent so much time doing it in that way that I literally got nothing out of it half the time. It was so dull and empty. I didn't get any.
It was perfunctory.
It absolutely was. It was absolutely was. And, but I spent so much time obsessing over it that when I lost faith entirely, again, that was a gradual process, but relative to how devoted I was, it seemed instant. But when that happened, and it was just like, and it exploded and just was like gone, that was something. It was like losing connection right there. It was like, you're here, you're connected, you're talking, and then it's black,
Yeah.
And then that was the dissolving of the thing. That was the dissolving of the statue that I had spent all this time building. This is my God. This is my, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's gone, and then miraculously it came back to me, and it came back to me in a different form, absolutely transformed by the experience of having lost it. But it did come back. But the beautiful thing about it is it came back after I had already accepted that it was okay to lose it, and so I didn't grab onto it the way I used to just feel like I had to hold on to this thing. I was like, oh, it's back. Isn't that beautiful? And then it goes out again. And it's like, oh, it's not here the way it was. That's beautiful. I'm in it. I live and move and have my being in whatever this is. It doesn't matter if it's right here, smack dab, right face to face with me. And then it comes back. And then, but there is, this thought came to me actually when it cut out and it just went to a black screen. It's like that's what it felt like. That's what the experience felt like for me. Just like, and everything was just gone. I was like, wow, okay. And I kind of came to the conclusion in that season that nothing was meaningful. And what I meant when I said that was everything is meaningless. Nothing is meaningful. And I meant everything is meaningless. However, after staring into that nothing long enough, I came to discover, quite contrary to what I thought before, that nothing is meaningful. And what I mean when I say it this way is that the nothingness itself is filled with meaning. I had to encounter.
Jean-Paul Sartre.
Exactly.
The nothingness itself.
Yep.
Is filled with meaning in the moment.
Because everything exists in the void. What we see as a void is what contains everything that is, right? And so it's all there. And to me, that's the place I'm at right now. Like, I'm a mystic by heart. I still have mystical experiences when I pray and when I'm in meditation. I'm a dreamer regularly. These things come to me in dreams or just intuitions. I don't boast or make a big deal about these things. It's just a natural part of my life. But
And mine as well.
yeah,
Yes.
but when I go through day-to-day life, it's not always like that. I'm not always obsessing over it. I'm not always thinking on it. It's not like I'm always like, oh, Jesus, hallelujah. I don't live like that. I don't think like that anymore. I just live a normal life, and these things just, they're a part of my normal life. Because it's dissolved into my life. Whereas before it was a distinct thing, right? It was something separate from my being, separate from my existence, that I had to like turn away from my life and existence to interact with this thing. Whereas now it is just everything. And exactly to your point about gratefulness, I think, roundabout way of saying it, but I think gratefulness, it's the same way. It can be an attitude that's just established in your life. And so you don't have to always have gratefulness at the forefront of your mind, like be deliberately grateful. Again, I have meditation practices I do where I am purposely grateful for things. But again, I don't go through my day like, okay, wait, stop and be grateful. Stop and be grateful. Sometimes I do that. But most of the time, it's just an attitude of the heart. It's just an attitude of the heart that over the years, I've just learned. You're in one of those moments. You're in one of those moments right now that you'll never forget. Just stop and just be here. Of course,
Take it in.
Exactly. And I think like I've come to really believe that time, we know time is an illusion. Time is a creation. Time is a gift that we've been given so that we don't experience everything at once. We get to experience it being played out as a kind of narrative. We experience what just simply is as a narrative because of the gift of time. And I've found myself at different points in my life in moments where I have been so overwhelmed by love and gratefulness that time just slowed down.
Yeah.
Literally, it just, and I'm just here and everything's like slow motion, just like, and then that moment in my mind lives eternally as though it just occurred. And there are a handful of those things in my life. I'll never forget my daughter. She wasn't even one, holding herself up on the windowsill of our first home, looking outside, her hair in this cute little water spout ponytail at the top of her head. I remember the shorts she was wearing, the shirt she was wearing, the way the sun was coming in through the windows, and she was just all aglow. And I just looked at her, and I could smell the whatever I was cooking on our charcoal grill wafting through the window, and it was just this moment, and it was just like frozen in time. I can close my eyes and I can go back to that moment, and I'm there. That moment is frozen in time. And I have several of those in my life that are just like, I can access them at any time. I can go back there. And then there's a ton of other moments that are just gone, that are just lost, that I can't access it. Even though things larger and seemingly more important than those were happening, I wasn't engaging with love and gratefulness in that moment. And so they just kind of slipped past me. And it's weird because it's like, there are like months and some years of my life that just seem to like be, and they're gone, right? They're just gone. I can remember the events. I can recall what happened, but but then there are those moments that are just, they're dense and they're thick because of, just because of the mindset in the moment I stopped and the way that I engaged it. It's forever there. And I think that's a very real thing. I think we literally can slow time when we live in an attitude of love and gratefulness. I mean, metaphorically and literally, because what good is the philosophy if it really has no application in everyday life, really? And that works. It's real. I mean, it literally works. So whether it's just theory or whether it can be proved scientifically or not, I really don't give a crap. It works. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's the story in scripture, Moses encounters the burning bush, right? And so seeing a burning bush is not really all that extraordinary of a thing when you're in, a very dry climate intense heat, that happens sometimes. The thing that made him stop and wonder was that the bush was burning, but it wasn't consumed.
Yes.
So there's this bush that's it's like in an advanced, it's experiencing an advanced case of entropy. Everything's experiencing entropy and wearing down, but this is in an advanced state of entropy because it's actually burning. So it would deteriorate anyways, but this is going to deteriorate faster because it's on fire. However, the divine touches that object, and when it touches that object, it's frozen in time. And it's burned, but it's not consumed.
Right.
It's burning, but it's just there, and that's what makes Moses stop and say, "What's up with this?"
Yeah.
And the voice comes and says, "I am that I am." That's where Moses encounters the God of Israel as I am, and I think that's a reality that we can bring to bear on everyday life when we live in that reality of I amness, and we just I am in this moment. These moments that are just that we're all infected with entropy. We can't get out of it. It's happening. Everything's wearing down. Every great, beautiful moment is passing. But if we live in that state of I amness, those moments, they stop.
Yes. I perceive that as living in a perpetual state of grace.
Yeah.
And though I don't always succeed, that is my objective, is to live in grace as much as possible, to live in the light, to be the light that I seek.
Yeah.
And I fail sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I have my moments, but I notice as I grow older that I can return to that state of grace much more rapidly than I once did. I don't get caught up in the gobbledygook the way I once did. I don't go, as some would say, down the rabbit hole. I might peer down the rabbit hole, but I don't take a flying leap and then have to crawl my way back up.
Yeah.
So as I've matured toward childhood, and I love that metaphor, because it seems particularly apropos to the process that I've been through on my earth time. Being an earthling is very difficult. I do believe that time, perhaps even the space-time continuum, is a human machination. It is something that I really do think of time as an illusion. It's just like Carly Simon said, measuring her day in teaspoons, measuring time by teaspoons. I think that it is part of the process of understanding who we are and creating our own reality in context with the reality that we see all around us as we live in a 3D 5 sensory realm predominantly. But because of my, some would say, overexposure to alternate dimensions as a child, I think that my perceptions burgeoned at a much earlier age in terms of my perception of the world at large and the possibilities, the infinite possibilities that exist within this world, should we allow ourselves to be open to that process. And so even though I have witnessed phenomenal events, and some would say divine events, I would say divine events. If you were to ask me what is the last event that I feel gratitude for, It was the bald eagle that flew over my home this morning, teaching its young to fly, and seeing a baby bald eagle next to its mother, seeing the father off in the tip of a tree at a distance, observing his family. And I was just awestruck. It's not that I haven't seen it before. I live right on a lake. There are bald eagles' nests all around Lake Apopka. It's a sanctuary for them. So I see eagles frequently, but I'm so grateful that I was outside to see that this morning. I'm so grateful when I see a monarch butterfly land on my lantana and sip the nectar. And I'm just transfixed in that moment of, oh my God, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And in that moment, I'm immersed in gratitude, in a like taking a piece of lobster and just dipping it into warm drawn butter. I mean, it's got to be the same feeling, except of course the lobster is dead and doesn't feel shit. But still, it's what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just it's a moment of wonder. It's a moment of connection.
Yeah.
That is a blessed event. And it might be the simplest thing. It might be just the simplest thing. I remember being years and years ago when Gracie Pearl was still a puppy, and she was only about maybe 35, 40 pounds. She was a baby. But, she topped out at 135 pounds. So she was still a baby. And I had her out on the back deck, and it was in the autumn, and an 8-point buck and full-grown deer, family of deer came through the yard, crossed the road. It was the father and the mother, a doe and a fawn, and she didn't even bark. Her eyes got as big as saucers. She had never seen deer in her short little life. And she turned around and looked at me like, do you see this? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Now don't bark, don't scare them. And they'll stay for a few minutes. And they slowly, because she did not startle them, they gently, quietly walked through our 2 measly acres and went into the forest behind the house. And she just looked at me with the wonder of a child.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that moment. I will never forget that. That touched me.
Yeah. There's like 2 quick stories I just feel to tell, if I can.
Yes, please.
And just cut me off if I'm
anything that you are compelled to say, honey.
Okay.
Anything.
Okay. So this was years ago, and when I had to step down from my position as pastor.
Yeah.
It was tough. That was my career. That's what I was trained to do. It's what I love to do. I just couldn't do it in the context I was in anymore, unfortunately. And, again, it was my career. I've got 3 kids. I've got a mortgage. I've got a wife, all of this. But my heart said, you can't keep going this way anymore. You've got to make a change. I did. Change doesn't always mean instant gratification and that everything goes wonderfully. And that was certainly the case with me. I went through a few years of hell. I mean, financial troubles. You know what I mean? I mean, how do you at 30, I wasn't 30. I was 32, 33. Yeah, I was 33 because I always think, oh yeah, that was the year Jesus was crucified.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Felt kind of similar. But just, we were plunged into, I instantaneously lost 75% of my income. A lot of things that were promised, hey, this will happen, that'll happen, just fell through like immediately. And I was just like, oh God, I'm not trained to do anything else. I don't know how to do anything else. I wouldn't even know how to work at McDonald's. I worked at Target when I was in college, and then I became a pastor. and I did that for 12 years. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't know how to do anything else. And so there were some seasons of darkness that I passed through. And I just mean internal. I don't mean anything external or whatever, but just internally I struggled a lot. And I remember this one particular Christmas, probably right around this time of year, a little later into December perhaps. And I'm washing dishes. My wife and my kids, they're all in they were in I think they were going to be in a Christmas Carol, a production of A Christmas Carol at a theater that's about an hour from our home. And so all four of them were there 4 or 5 nights a week practicing. So I was alone most of the week, you know, and internally there was this, it was just dark, you know, and I felt it all around me. And I was washing the dishes one night, and this phrase just came to me from the philosopher Richard Carney, who wrote Anatheism and a bunch of other great books, but that the surface is the deepest place. And that phrase just came to me, and it just rang through my soul. And I didn't know what to do with it, but it just rang through my soul. And I was like, I got to get out of the house. I'm just depressed. So I got out of the house and I just drove around and I was looking at Christmas lights. Usually something I'd be doing with my family, but this year they were gone most of the time and it was just rough. So I'm just driving around looking at Christmas lights by myself. I got Michael Bublé's Christmas album on. That's my go-to. And I'm singing to myself. I got myself a Starbucks and I'm doing the best I can just to cheer myself up, but I still feel like crap. And I'm driving down this particularly beautifully decorated street. And I look at this house, nothing too extraordinary about it. It's a normal house, well lit, but when I look at it, it's like my eyes just zoom in, like, I swear to God, it was that real. And it was like all of a sudden I'm staring at this string of lights that was wrapped around the porch, like the railing. That's it. That's all it was. But it was like I was there staring at it. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I know how stupid that sounds, but it was just the simplest but most beautiful and profound thing I had ever seen. And the phrase came back to me, the surface is the deepest place. And it was at that moment, it was like light just flooded me. Like, it was like, oh, light just flooded me and all the darkness just broke momentarily. And it's exactly like the moment you're talking. There was nothing really significant about the moment at all to anyone else. In fact, it sounds like I suffered a breakdown of sorts to anyone else listening. But to me, it was just this moment of profound lucidity and awareness and presence. And it was just like, and the darkness just broke. There was another time, this had to have been right around this time of year. And I was still battling with that, just that darkness. And financially strapped, all that good stuff. And I was driving to the store. I had to pick up an item and I'm driving on this dirt road to get to the store. We kind of live out in the country a little bit. And so I'm driving into town and I just feel the car go and I'm like, that's always a good feeling and a good sound. So I get out and look and the tire is literally like this. It's like horizontal. It's not supposed to be that way. Right. And it's freezing cold out. I call AAA. They end up taking like 2 hours to get there. I have barely a cent to my name. I don't know how I'm going to pay for any of this. And I'm just in the car consumed by darkness. It's not my normal disposition at all, but it was just, I was in a dark spot. And the guy, I was in near a guy's house and this little old guy comes out of his garage to check on me and see what's going on. And he's got this little cup of coffee he brought me because it was cold. And it was probably the crappiest cup of coffee I've ever had in my life, but it was the most amazing cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. It tasted terrible, but I made myself drink the entire thing. So this guy comes up there, makes some awkward small talk, gives me some thoughts on what it might be, trying to just, well, okay, fella, I'll see you later. And then he goes inside and I'm left there drinking this coffee, bawling my eyes out. Because in that moment of darkness, there was this light that just appeared. And it was like if I could have totally missed that. I could have totally missed that moment. Like that strand of lights that just broke through my darkness on that night. But that old man with that crappy cup of coffee possibly saved my life. Literally, it was light that just broke through in a way that I can't explain. And I was just sitting there so grateful and so overwhelmed. by this love that came to me through someone I don't know in a moment where it was the last thing I expected to experience. And it just shattered that calcified darkness that I was just trapped in like a shell, just shattered it. A simple gesture. That guy probably forgot about it. Probably has no idea that even happened. But it saved my life.
And that's what we talk about the milk of human kindness, that outreach, that moment of compassion that we should never fail to extend to another, because we never know who we're touching, who we're reaching. You know, that moment of just even a smile can save another life, and we don't know we're doing that. But it's that moment of connection, that connectivity that maybe is missing in a tragic way from a person's life. I remember going into Publix one day, the grocery store, and a woman walked past me, and she'd had obviously handmade a mask to match her hat, like a church lady hat, you know, like she was, if she was going to go out in public in the midst of, it was like last year, pre-vaccine, in the midst of a pandemic, if she was going to go out and contract a deadly illness, she was going to look good doing it. And I ran into her in the produce section, and I just looked at her and I said, you can't see, you know, I had my mask on, and I said, you can't see how much I'm smiling right now. I said, but look at my eyes. You are a feast for the eyes. This is beautiful, what you have done. And it was like light shot out of her. You know, it was like light literally shot out of her. And she stood up straighter, and she adjusted her hat, and she's like, oh, you really think so? I'm like, oh, honey, you got this going. You work that business. And then I turned around and I went down to the dairy department, you know. But as I was checking out, she was through the other line. She was in the other line behind me, and we both kind of checked out together. And so we, you know, kind of came together for a moment. And she said, I just want you to know that you made my day. You know, and it can be just something that little. I mean, I don't think I uttered more than 10 or 20 words to her, a perfect stranger, never met her before, have never seen her again. But it altered her entire trajectory. And she felt good, and she felt beautiful. And it was obvious she was doing whatever she had to do to try to make herself feel better. And if that meant matching her mask to her hat and putting on a pair of high heels to go grocery shopping, then that little bit is what she was going to try to do to lift herself up. But then for me to acknowledge what she did as flawless is what liberated her to fully, completely embrace and joyfully accept that compliment. Because she was noticed in a world where we tend not to notice much of anything except our own selfish needs on any at any given moment, at any time. When we begin to, I think when we begin to live in gratitude, to live in it, to assimilate it into our consciousness in such a way that we are the living, breathing embodiment of that sentiment, then it frees us to project it outward and to share it with others.
And it brings like I really believe this, and I understand anyone who says they understand quantum physics. Feynman says clearly doesn't understand quantum physics, but but for the sake of the metaphor, I'm a proponent of something like the many worlds hypothesis, and I think we exist in many states, potential states. I think there's many potential versions of us, even if you only use that as a thought experiment, right? That in any moment there's an infinite number of Jeffs. I could go in any number of directions right now and become a different version of myself as a result of the direction I take. And so light in the double slit experiment, famously, that experiment demonstrates that light behaves differently depending on whether or not it's being observed or seen.
Yes.
When it's seen, it behaves one way. When it's not seen, it behaves a different way. When it's seen, the wave state, the potential, is collapsed into a particle state and becomes reality. And so, like, in that moment when I'm in my car and I'm broken, right? And I'm at the end. There's a darker road I could go down, right?
Yes.
Not literally because I can't move,
Yeah.
but there is a darker road I could have gone down. Much darker. God only knows. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
But there was a human being who observed me and saw me as something, just as a human in need. That's it. I don't think this guy did any great philosophizing before he brought me a cup of coffee and was like, oh, I can change this guy's destiny. He just brought me a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It was a gesture of kindness. But when he did it, that wave state collapsed into a particle state and I changed. Something happened to me and I became a different person. That woman in the store that day, God only knows who she is, what was going on in her mind. Who knows? But when you saw her and you noticed her, all those potential versions of herself collapsed into whatever it was she became as a result of that. And it's like you said, when we live in that state of gratefulness, we become conduits of the divine knowledge, however one wants to understand that. I love, there's a verse in Galatians where the Apostle Paul says, now that you've come to know God, and then he stops himself and says, or rather have come to be known by God, how is it that you're turning back to all these superstitious practices? And I love the point, because we could just kind of read over that and think Paul was just whatever. But it's a purposeful move. He at first strokes their ego by saying, now that you've come to know God, and of course, he then corrects them for all these superstitious practices. So by saying you've come to know God, of course they're thinking, well, yeah, we've come to know God. Look at all we do. And then he says, or rather have come to be known by God. And by saying that, he kind of invalidates all their superstitious practices and says, it really isn't about your knowledge of God. It's about God's knowledge of you. Now, however one wants to understand that, that means that your understanding of yourself isn't really the powerful thing. It's the divine's knowledge of you that then you become a partaker of. That is the transformative thing. And we become agents who dispense that to the world when we live in a state of gratefulness, because blessed are the pure in heart, they'll see God. So there's a state of being we can live in where, regardless of what else is going on, we always see the divine. We always see the gold wherever we are. And we can actually collapse wave states into particle states just by simple cups of coffee, compliments on a fancy hat. And we can change an entire person's destiny by knowing them in a moment. And it's like we're participants in cosmic consciousness. We are participants in the divine in humanity, coming to know itself in humanity. I was just reading in memory Carl Jung's Memories and Dreams and Reflections, where he talks about his time in Africa and how he looked at this beautiful scene and there were animals at the water and whatever. It was this gorgeous scene. And he says, it just dawned on me that there was no one else looking at this scene in that moment. And so, like, for all suits and purposes, although it existed in human cosmic consciousness, it really didn't exist. It hadn't yet been rendered into reality because it hadn't been observed through that consciousness. And he's like, and I realized by seeing it, I stopped myself and I saw it and I knew it, and realized it was like being rendered outward into the rest of the collective unconscious or whatever. And that's an elaborate way of talking about it, but it's like in everyday life, I try to practice that. Like that when I observe a thing in a person and then I actually give voice to that observation or put feet to the observation and let them know what I see as true about them, I believe that in some way it's healing the whole of humanity. It's like,
I understand.
Yeah.
I agree. I see it slightly differently. I think that I do not. I think essentially we are each the living, breathing embodiment of prime of source energy, of the prime creator, of that we are like the tentacles of the octopus, that we are completely integrated, that we are one with what some call Christ consciousness, God consciousness, source energy, that we are the living, breathing embodiment. We are the way God sees its creation.
Yeah, I agree.
Through our own eyes, through the eyes, through the leaves of the plants, through the trunks of the trees, through, on this living, breathing globe, this piece of rock hurling through space is alive. It is existence. It is maybe not a form of consciousness in the living things around us in the plant life, and the fauna, flora and fauna, maybe not exactly the way we process the same information, just experiencing the nowness, the oneness, the connection of just primary existence. I don't think that one life form is lesser than another.
No, I don't know.
Which is, all part of my greater philosophy. But I think that, there's a line, be still and know that I am God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think of that as God saying, you sit down and you know that I'm the boss here and you're going to do what I tell you to, and here are my commandments and you follow them.
Right.
My interpretation of that is be still, go within, and know that I am God, that you are God, that she is God, an expression of the creator viewing its own creation.
Yeah.
And so there's complete, utter, total integration in that process.
Yeah.
Which for me is where I am most comfortable. It feels like there is no hierarchy at all in any way, shape, or form in terms of a caste system of human beings, or of anything that is living and breathing and existing in our world, because everything is one thing.
Yes.
Everything is energy. Everything is consciousness. Everything. And I think that in order for us to make our own spiritual ascension and to truly discover the incredible lightness of being, we have to first achieve a complete, utter, total realization of oneness. And once we achieve that, and there is no separation, I believe separation is the illusion, not the reality.
Yep. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And I think, if any of my, like when I use the illustration with Jung and him seeing the animals and believing that like integrated into consciousness, that's of course working with Jung's understanding of the collective unconsciousness. I'm not saying that moment didn't belong because it was a lower form of consciousness, and when humans came onto the scene, it made it real. It was just those were his words, but
that was his interpretation.
Yeah. But I think the same basic idea being communicated in another way. I agree with you 100%. I'm completely of the idea that everything is one thing. And I think Meister Eckhart was right when he said, the eye through which I see God is the eye through which God sees me.
God sees me.
Yes. And I think, and that's, I guess what I mean is I think that's the process. It's us waking others up to the fact that they are divine. And
Yes.
and the cup of coffee does that sometimes. It snaps me into reality and makes me remember, wait a minute.
Yeah. And it's
Who
not
am
the
I?
caffeine, it's the
No.
kindness.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it was so watered
It
down.
was-
There was probably
yeah.
not much caffeine in that anyways. But it was but it snapped me back into that divine consciousness of like, wait a minute, what am I doing here? I know who I am. You know what I mean? I'm what am I doing here in this dark? You know, it allowed me to pick myself up. Seeing that weird moment with the Christmas lights, which felt like a psychotic break in some sense, but it was like
And an epiphany.
but
It was an epiphany.
yeah, and it snapped me back into that divine consciousness of like, wait a minute, I know who I am, I know where I am, I know what I am, and and I think that's what we get to participate in, and I think cultivating a life of gratefulness where we do consciously, if we have to practice it that way at first, practice finding what it is we're grateful about, or what it is, you know, whatever, about a person or a situation. And yes, eventually it dissolves into our being and it just becomes second nature. But beginning the practice, and then not just by, you know, a meditative practice, but then actually putting feet to it.
Yes.
And when we feel so compelled, you know, say something to someone, give somebody, you know, a word, if you will, no matter how bizarre it seems. I mean, I remember one time I was coming back from a convention 3 hours from my home, and I had this odd sensation to drive 60, like to do the best I could to drive 66 miles an hour up until I reached a certain exit. And I was like, this is stupid. I got to get home. But I just had this compulsion to do it. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm saving myself from getting in a wreck or something, and I guess I'll do it. So I did it. And then I felt to get off at this exit, and I get off at this exit. And then when I get on the road, I felt drive until you find someone with the last name Edwards. And so I did that. I drove. I didn't see any signs in any house, but there was a woman out getting her mail. And I said, is this the Edwards residence? And she said, yes. And then I just was reminded of the old revivalist preacher, Jonathan Edwards. The name just came to me, and I said, do you have a son named Jonathan? I just was going with it. And she was like,
stream
yes.
of consciousness,
Yes.
baby. Go with it.
Yeah. She was
Ride
like,
that stream.
she was like, yes, I have a son named Jonathan, and he's in, I think he was in Iraq or Afghanistan at the time, and I'm actually really worried about him right now. And I was like, well, I just feel like I was sent here to just comfort you and let you know everything's okay, and you're loved and you're known. And she burst into tears, and we had a moment, and then I got back on the road. I don't know what that did for that woman. You know, I don't know what that did for that woman. I mean, I have no idea. I never went back and followed up, but I mean, to be conduits of that kind of grace and that kind of love, again, I mean, God only knows the numerous states that woman could have entered into, the numerous different versions of herself she could have chosen to become, that maybe that one act changed that, you know? And I think when we practice seeing the divine, whatever we want to call it, in all things, and then we just begin to see it, like when you make it a practice, then all of a sudden one day it just appears and you no longer have to practice it. And then you call it out. Right. We're changing. It feels so small, but we're literally like raising the whole of creation. Everything is rising.
The vibration of
Yep.
the planet.
Yep.
And healing the world of its woes.
Yep. You're lifting one link of a chain in the whole thing. Yep.
One moment at a time.
Yes.
One instant. One kindness at a time.
Yes.
And it's love.
Yes.
It's love. Because as I have always maintained, love is the answer to every question.
Yes.
That is the common denominator. And when we put it into practice, we quickly understand that it is our superpower.
Yes.
It is what we are born of. It is what we are made of. And it's what we are an expression of.
Yes.
And it is painfully easy for humanity to forget that, to become misguided, to become more self-possessed and forget that everything is one thing. I really do believe we're born knowing that we're born knowing that we are immortal, that we are part of the cosmic
Yeah.
consciousness, the energy, the existence of the whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is conditioned out of us, and we're made smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to make the prime creator smaller
Mm-hmm.
to suit our limited perceptions.
Yeah. Yep.
And if we reverse that action and we rise to the occasion of this paradigm shift and come into our own spiritual awareness, it will prompt a rapid evolution in human consciousness, which I believe is ongoing.
Yeah.
And I think that this wonderful little show tucked in the back end of cyberspace does, I hope, I pray, make a difference in the world, even if it's just a small difference, even if it just touches a few hearts every week and makes people think differently about their own presence in the world and the contributions that they are capable of making, even with the smallest effort, how we are able to heal the world, because our thoughts are things.
Yes.
And if we focus on what is our best intention for the world and all who dwell within, and hold that with a grateful heart. As Dickens said, keep Christmas every day. Keep Christmas in your heart every day.
I love that.
Well, I think that we can keep love and kindness and generosity of spirit. I think that we can all be pure of heart every day.
Yep.
And in so doing, it is immeasurable, unquantifiable, but each in our own way, we are doing our part to heal the world.
Yeah.
And so I encourage everyone on the at this time of Thanksgiving, for whatever reason you celebrate it, celebrate yourself in the midst as part and parcel of the whole of the entirety of humanity, and lift each other up and extend a warm hand and a sweet smile. And again, as I say so frequently, become the light that you seek. And on that note, Jeff, I thank you for joining us tonight. Tony is he's the man behind the curtain. I don't know where he went, but he's there. And I'm sure he wants to say goodnight as well.
Yes.
But this has been 2 hours that went very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I looked at the clock and then I saw, 5 minutes to wrap. I'm like, no way.
I know.
How did that happen?
It was great conversation, though. You two just have some amazing and bring to light things that most people probably wouldn't even go deep enough to think about. So just a fantastic job again, Jeff and Andrea, as always. Just great conversation.
I love you both with all my heart. I love you all. To our viewers that tuned in, I wish you the happiest of holidays.